Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Manuel with Urban Wealth Management. Thank you for joining me for the webinar today. We really appreciate you signing up. And as you may know, we're doing a new system this year. We're releasing the webinars once a month. And so you'll be able to download them on the second Thursday of every month. So I do want to say thank you again. This is the Smart Women Savvy Money webinar. We host these webinars every single month except December for our entire community, for our clients, our friends of friends, our families of families. These are for everyone. And this is really an opportunity for us to give back to the community, our community, and to share really great, wonderful people with you every single month that we think can help you in a variety of different ways. So let me take a second and give you some background on Urban Wealth Management. We're a full-service financial advisory firm. We do financial planning, we do money management, and some insurance. But most importantly, we help our clients get clarity and confidence about their money and their wealth. Our intention is that everyone that works with us and comes across any of the information that we share, that they're on a track and journey to fulfill their dreams. Personally, I am on a mission to ensure that every single woman in the United States of America understands their money and understands their wealth, and they are able to live their dreams. I want you to join us at all of our events. We'll be kicking off a variety of different things in 2020. Please visit frequently our website. Here you see it. We have blogs, we have events, we have, it tells you a little bit about the services that we have to offer. And of course, to get our webinars, you'll need to make sure that you are on our newsletter list. So definitely take the time to sign up for our list. And we'll share with you everything that's going on with us and any of the people we support or anyone that we know, and that will be information that will be helpful to our community. So make sure you stay on top of that. We're there for you. We also have a Facebook page, which is Smart Women Savvy Money, and feel free to sign up for that. Without further ado, I want to introduce someone who is a fantastic partner with us, Dr. Lois Frankel. She is amazing. I met her years ago. Our commitments are the same. We want women to stand in their shoes, to be strong, to not only sit at the table, create new tables where we are able to put our best foot forward, and that all these women have strategies for making that work. Lois has a new book coming out, and I think today or tomorrow, and she's going to talk a little bit about that, but you're going to get a preview. And I'm so excited to have her with us on our very first webinar to start the brand new decade. And I can't think of a better person to have with us. Lois, thank you for joining us. I'm going to switch the screen over to you, and hopefully it all works.
Okay, great, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. You are really too kind. And Urban Wealth Management has been a good friend also to Bloom Again Foundation, a foundation that I started about 11 years ago. And so, you know, Happy New Year first to everyone. And as Diane already told you, Diane, can you see what I'm doing here?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Everything's perfect. Okay, great. And before I get going, let me tell you a little bit about why I wrote this book. When I do keynotes, The most common comment I get afterwards is, I wish I had you on my shoulder, whispering in my ear when I have to stand up for myself, have a difficult conversation, disagree with someone. And so last year it kind of popped into my head, well, why don't I do a book about that? Because I don't know any great books that I could refer people to on how to have every aspect of communication in your life in one place, in one reference book. And so when I pitched the book to my publisher, Hachette, I said, I want this to be an audio book. I don't want it to be in writing because I feel like people have to hear this. So the book originally, and this will give you an idea of what the content is, I was originally calling it The Nice Girl's Guide to Telling People to Go to Hell So They Look Forward to the Trip. That kind of tells you everything you need to know. And again, in their infinite wisdom, the publisher said, let's make this another Nice Girls book. So the book is called Nice Girls Don't Speak Up or Stand Out. How to make your voice heard, your point known, and your presence felt. And so that's what the audio book is. And today, I'm going to give you just the highlights of it in a presentation that's going to take about 25 minutes, and I usually do this in an hour and a half. So I'll be going pretty quickly for you. First, what you need to have if you want to communicate confidently and courageously are basics in your toolkit. It's a little bit like baking bread or making a cake. There's certain things you need to have in your cupboard. And if you have those, you know you can do it. So these are the basics you need in your communication cupboard. And the first one is build strong 360-degree relationships. Now you notice I have here a can of WD-40. And if you know anything about WD-40, it makes everything go smoothly. And so you need an industrial-sized can of WD-40 to build relationships. Because what does this have to do with communication? Well, you probably know yourself. If someone says something to you that you don't quite like, but you like the person, you give them a pass. If someone says something to you don't quite like and you don't like the person, you do not give them a pass. So that's why building relationships is so important. Sometimes people will say to me, and how do I do that? Well, you're going to do 4 things to build relationships, and you can see here I call this the FEM model because I happen to think women are great at building relationships. You're not always conscious of it, and you don't always use them to your advantage, but you're great at doing it. So I'm going to encourage you to keep doing it. Some people say I have a hard time doing it. So here's the 4 things you're going to do. When you're talking to someone new, the first thing you do is find common ground with them. Ask them about themselves, their interests, what they do for a living, where they live. Find something you have in common because that really does cement relationships. Next, express genuine interest in what they're saying. I think it was Dale Carnegie who said, you build more relationships by listening to others and being interested in others than you will by having them be interested in you. So express genuine interest in whatever they're saying, and you often do that by asking them more questions. The M stands for match body language with people. If people are, you've got to be observant, and if people are starting to move back from you, then you need to honor that, and you need to maybe back a little bit up too. If people are smiling and leaning into you, you do the same thing. And the E stands for exhibit empathy. If people are telling you something that's either hard for them to share or it's something sad, well, don't be afraid to use your emotions and say, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. This is how you build strong relationships using the FEM model, and this is all in the book. So don't feel as if you have to remember all this. You can actually hear me talking about it more in the audiobook. And number 2 is talk back to self-talk. The fact is inside many women, in most of us, there's this voice that when we want to be our most assertive, ask for what we need or want, disagree with someone, or set boundaries with people, we often feel as if there's a voice in our heads that's saying, who are you to think you should say this? Or how do you have the right to do this? You need to talk back to that voice in your head that may tell you you don't have the right, or girls are to be seen and not heard, or people won't like you if you do this. You need to develop your own mantra. A mantra similar to, I have every right to express myself and expect that people will listen to me. Now listen to how much different that is than saying, who are you to think, right? So build your mantra and use it regularly. 3, in your toolkit, you need a desk script. This is how you are going to have difficult conversations. Okay, from now on, when you're going to have a difficult conversation, you are going to script it out. The D stands for describe why you want to talk to someone. The E stands for explain your position and elicit theirs. The S stands for specify desired behavior, and the C stands for clarify consequences, positive or negative. So let me put it together for you very quickly so you can hear what this sounds like, and then you're going to start doing this on your own. I might say, and since Diane is on the line right now with us, I might say, you know, Diane, I'd like to talk to you about something that happened in the meeting the other day. That's describe why I want to talk. Explain my position and elicit hers. You know, it felt as if each time I went to speak, you started to either play with your phone or answer emails or play with your tablet, and it made me feel as if what I had to say wasn't important to you. Now, you see, I'm not blaming her in any way. I'm just explaining my position. I'm giving the facts. This is what happened, and this is how it made me feel. And then you toss it over to them. Now, I'm not going to do it in this case, but you toss it over to the other person and say, how do you see this situation? Now, Diane may come back to me and say, oh, I had no idea I was doing that. Or she could come back and say, no, that's not true. You're being overly sensitive. In either case, all you're going to do is listen. And then you're going to specify what you'd like to see happen. So you might say something like, you know, be that as it may, or I'm glad that you see it this way as well. I'd like to tell you what would be really helpful to me is in the future, if when we're in a meeting together, you would just listen to what I have to say and actually add to it, because you have so much value to add, Diane, that I feel as if together we'd be just an amazing team. And then the C stands for clarify consequences. And when I just use this with you the first time, the consequences should be positive. So it might be, you know, Diane, I am so grateful to you for listening to me with this. And again, I think if you do that listening and supporting what I have to say, we'll be an unbeatable team. Now, let's just say I've had this conversation with Diane before and nothing changes. Then the consequence might be negative. It might be something like, you know, Diane, we've had this conversation before, nothing's changed. I can only tell you that if that continues, then you'd probably be hard-pressed to get my support when you need it most. That's a negative consequence, and you use them very rarely, often when it's the hill that you really want to die on, okay? Number 4, you're going to use headlines to communicate your points. Okay, headlines, if I could turn this upside down, usually what happens is that women use a lot of words before they ever get to the point, and it drives people crazy. One of the reasons why you use a lot of words before you get to the point is because you're not confident of yourself, because you haven't prepared your communication, because you think people need to hear everything that's in your head. None of that is true. Here, from now on, you are going to use headlines to communicate. And what the model says is that the first thing out of your mouth has to be the most important thing. You follow that up with 2 or 3 pieces of supporting information or supporting points. And then you use a tagline. You know, we live in a society where we expect women to care what other people think. Men don't have to use the tagline. Women do if they don't want to sound too strident. So let me put this, and let me just say one more thing. And a tagline is something that invites others into the conversation after you've made your point. So here's how a headline communication might sound. I would like to suggest that everyone have a strong financial development plan. I say this for 3 reasons. Number 1, there's never the time like the present to get your finances in order. Number 2, no one will ever take better care of your finances than you will take care of them yourself. And number 3, hopefully you're going to grow to be an old woman, and you want to be a rich old woman, not a poor one. Now, you can hear I feel strongly about developing financial plans. I'd like to know what kind of plan you already have in place. Okay, that might be an example of using a headline communication. But you can use this in any situation, whether you're answering a question or making a point or trying to influence someone. So again, this has to be in your toolkit basics. Number 5 is to use contrasting. And you use contrasting in situations where you don't want to, you feel as if you want something and you don't want to damage a good relationship. So you say what you don't want and you do want. That's the contrast, what you don't want and what you do want. So it might sound like this. I don't want you to think I'm not grateful for everything you've done for me, because I certainly am. At the same time, when we first discussed my compensation package, I was told that I would get a raise after 60 days. And it's now been 90 days, and I haven't gotten it. And I'm wondering, what do we have to do to make it happen? You could hear, that's contrasting. I don't want this, but I do need this. Okay? Number 6, toolkit. Is to 6 model for your toolkit is to vary your influence style. Okay, most women, when they influence other people, use that one in the middle, and it's called bridging, or the bridge. And bridging is when I listen to what you have to say, and then I tie it together with what I have to say, right? And that's great to do when you want to build a relationship, when you want to heal a relationship, but it's not always appropriate. Look at these 4 other styles that you should have in your toolkit. The first is persuading. That's when you're the expert, and you use data, facts, and figures to make your point up front. Assertion. That's when you have a legitimate want or need, and you need to put it out there in terms of either this happens or what will be the consequence, right? It's when you have a legitimate want or need. It may be that someone reports to you and they aren't performing appropriately and you need to be assertive with them about your feedback, or it could just be you've asked for something many times and it's never happened, and now this is the hell you're willing to die on. Okay? Attraction. That's using your unique ideas and enthusiasm to attract people to you and to what you would like them to do. You know, car salespeople use this a lot. Salespeople in general use it a lot. They attract you to your idea. It's pulling them to you rather than pushing them towards the idea. And a 5th style of influence that most people don't even think about is moving away. And that's when you either avoid the conversation altogether because the time's not right, or when you see you're getting a lot of resistance and you don't think further discussion is going to do any good right now. So you say something like, you know what, I can see people are having difficulty with this. Why don't we table it for now and come back to it later? So those are 5 styles of influence, and I want you to think about how you could use each one. Number 7 is to frame parameters for people. I know there are times when you just want to say, are you kidding me? You want me to do what? All right? But at the same time, what we all need to do to be good communicators is we need to frame what are the parameters within which I am willing to operate. So let's just say someone asks you to do something with less time, less money, fewer resources than is humanly possible. What you should answer to this and to almost every request is, I would be happy to do that. Now let me tell you what it will take for me to do it in the amount of time you've given me. If you would like me to do it in that time frame, I can get it to you, but it is not going to be proofread. It is not going to be spell checked. There's just not enough time for that. Or if you'd like to give me another half day or so, I can give it to you in a format that I think will be ready for you to use. That would be an example of setting parameters for people. Or you might say, I'd be happy to do that for you. Let me tell you what I can give you today, what I could give you tomorrow, and what I could do if you give me 48 hours. And then the choice is entirely up to you. What you don't do is just turn yourself into a pretzel for people. You need to communicate what you can realistically do and what you can't, but it always starts off with, yes, I'd be happy to do it. Let me tell you how. All right, now let's put these basics to work, okay? Because those are the basics you have to have in your toolkit if you want to have all these other difficult conversations. So let's start with advocating for yourself. Certainly there are situations where you want to be an advocate for yourself. In those situations, you will use contrasting, persuasion, and headlines, right? You can use any one of these to be an advocate for yourself. You may be able to say something like, you know, I understand what you believe we should be doing at this time in my department, and I respect what you have to say. I wouldn't want you to think I don't respect you. At the same time, I have some expertise that I think might just influence the direction you'd like to go. Let me lay out 3 reasons why I believe we need to do this a little differently. And then you lay it out, okay? That's one, and you lay it out using headlines. That's just one way that you can advocate for yourself. But when you put together contrasting, persuasion, and headlines, and remember, you need to do this in advance, right? You need to prepare in advance. If you're worried about getting caught unaware, that you get caught with a question you hadn't thought about, pretty soon, when you start using these, because you do prepare them, they'll come to you naturally when you haven't prepared. Okay, next, when it comes to talking to men, we've got man-interrupting, appropriating, and mansplaining. Okay, man-interrupting is when a man interrupts you before you're finished. And what you're going to do here is you're going to be assertive. And you're going to say something like, hang on, I haven't quite finished. Let me finish, and then I'll toss it back to you. Okay? It's as simple as that. Don't let yourself be interrupted. You just say, hang on one second, haven't quite finished, then I'll toss it back to you. Now, if it's not appropriate to do that with a certain level of person, you may let them finish and then just jump in with, you know, I hear you, and I actually wasn't quite finished. Let me just finish what I was saying, then let's tie it all together. Okay, so you can do that. Now, appropriating is what a guy does when he steals your idea as his own. So you may put an idea out there, and all of a sudden another guy at the table takes it as his own idea, right? What you do with appropriating is, and you've got to do this with a straight face, so you may have to practice it a little, is when they've finished, you say, thank you so much for further illuminating my idea. It made me realize I'd like to add a couple things to it. And then you just re-own it. You take ownership of it back. And then what do you do when someone mansplains with you? Now, mansplaining is when a man thinks you don't know what you're talking about and either speaks for you or explains things to you that you don't need explained to you. And what you do in this case is you need to do what in basketball is called a hip check. Okay, in basketball, when one player gets a little too close to the other one, the player that feels like as if someone's getting too close to her, just kind of puts her hip out and just gives a little tap to the other person. Well, you're going to do a verbal hip check, and that's going to be, you know, hang on, I think you may not realize that I actually have a degree in this, and I have 15 years in the field. So I actually know what you're talking about. Now, that would be a nice way of doing it, right? Something else that you can do when somebody starts mansplaining to you is to just say, hang on, I've got it. Okay? And again, you practice all these things so that when the time comes, you do them naturally. How to give feedback to people. There are times when you must give feedback to people, and then there are times when you can give feedback to people. And you need to know which is which. You can give feedback when it's not your job, but you have information that might be helpful to someone. And in that case, you ask permission. I have some information that might be helpful to you, and I'm wondering if you'd like to hear it. If they say yes, you give it. If they say no, you don't. A must feedback or a must conversation is one where it's either your responsibility to say something, such as someone reports to you, or someone's behavior is impacting you. And then you must give feedback to them using one of the techniques we've already talked about. Communicating executive presence. Okay, this is really important. There are 3 elements of executive presence. The first one is your image, the second is gravitas, and the third is your communication skills. Now, you can read about this in Sylvia Hewlett's book, Executive Presence. She has a great book. I highly recommend it. Some things that I've borrowed from the book are these, are these 6 things that go into gravitas, okay? Because if you want to communicate with gravitas, you need to do these 6 things. First, exude confidence and show grace under fire. That takes practice to exude confidence. The more you do things, the more confidently you'll act. And grace under fire is when you keep your cool, even when people are shooting bullets at you. The next is acting decisively and showing teeth, knowing when you need to make a decision and stick with it. And the third thing that I want to talk about here is showing integrity and speaking truth to power. Speaking truth to power is the willingness to say things others think, but they won't say, and you need to have the courage to say it. Those are the 3 primary things I want to talk about here. Exuding grace under fire. I just use Nancy Pelosi. I think she's a great example of someone who exudes grace under fire. Showing teeth. Margaret Thatcher was always willing to show teeth, say things that other people may not wanted to hear, but needed to be said. And then showing integrity and speaking truth to power, Ambassador Yovanovitch, right? When she was in the impeachment hearings, she really spoke truth to power using facts, and she used her presence to communicate it even-handedly. Okay, what are you going to do in some sticky situations? You're going to do 3 things. Number 1, if someone does something that it could be sexual harassment, it could be anything that you find offensive, why don't you assume that they're ignorant about it? Not you're ignorant. Assume that they are ignorant and they didn't know better. Then you use iMessages to say how the behavior impacts you, and you clarify expectations. So I just did this the other day with someone who said something to me that I thought was offensive. And I said, I think that you may have misunderstood me. I didn't mean that I wanted to do this. I meant that I wanted to do that. And I think if we do that, it's going to really result in a great output for us both. That was an example of how I turned it around. Instead of saying to someone, I can't believe you're saying this to me, right? Or I don't like how you're talking to me. Why don't you assume that they're ignorant of how they sound or what they're doing first? And finally, I want to leave you with some stock phrases, right? Every nice girl needs these stock phrases in her toolkit. The first is, be that as it may. It's how you disagree with someone without being disagreeable. I used it a little while ago. If someone were to say to me, I don't agree with that, or you're being overly sensitive, I might say, be that as it may, I'd still like this to happen in the future, okay? As much as I would love to. This is how you decline invitations and not get stuck doing things you don't want to do. As much as I would love to, I just don't have the bandwidth right now. Okay? Another thing is I so appreciate, right? This is how I turn down sales calls. I so appreciate you thinking of me. At the same time, this isn't the right time for me to buy this. Okay? You can hear that every step of the way, I'm letting people keep their dignity, and I'm keeping mine too. Another one is, if I could, I would. Believe me, I'd love to do this. Unfortunately, the rules don't let me do this. To disagree, you can say, I see it a little bit differently. And then you might also appeal to someone's understanding, which is, I'm sure you understand, I get a lot of these invitations, and unfortunately, I just can't accept all of them. Okay, so let's leave it with, if you just set out to be liked, you would be prepared to compromise on anything, and you would achieve nothing. Don't feel as if you have to compromise. Step up to the plate. Communicate with courage and confidence using these tools and techniques and tips that I've just provided to you. Do it through 2020. Make it a point to make 2020 a better year communicating than 2019.
Well, thank you, Lois. You're sure your book's not out? Like, what's the date? Because I need it immediately.
Yeah, the book is out January 7th.
Okay.
And if anybody watching this will email me and let me know that you ordered the audiobook, and you can order the audiobook anywhere you buy your audiobooks. If you just email me at info@drloisfrankel.com, that's DRLOISFRANKEL.com, I'll send you a free companion workbook.
Wow. Thank you. That is so generous of you. You're always super generous to us and our communities. I'm so appreciative. I related to so many different things that you said. I just listened to a podcast about Dale Carnegie, so it just all resonated with me. And I think that, and it's some of the things I tell my clients when they're talking about money, and you make the point too, is to practice and to say things out loud. Use your mirror for other than lipstick. And
I like that.
Sometimes we just need to rehearse, and we need to hear our voice. And so when we're saying it in a meeting or to a colleague or a family member, we're not surprised with the words that roll off of our tongue. And if the more we say it, the more, as you said, the more confident we are. And
yes, and if I could just say one other thing, Diane,
sure.
And it is about preparation. That I still prepare the desk script in my head when I have to have a difficult conversation. I describe what I want to say. I explain my point of view. I elicit the other person's. I specify what I want to see happen, and I clarify consequences. And I do that over and over until I know I can say it with confidence.
Right, right. That's it. Thank you so much. I want everyone to go out and get that book. Shoot Lois an email. Could you give us the email again, Lois?
Yes, it's info@drloisfrankel.com, and that's DRLOISFRANKEL.com.
Thank you so much. I just want to tell everyone to watch for our next webinar in February. It should drop on February 13th. We're having Sona Tatyans. I'm not sure if I say her, Tatyans, that's her name. She is an estate planning attorney, and she's going to really talk about how where you think you have an estate plan and you're done, and the answer to that question is probably not. It's something you need to revisit periodically and just stay on top of to make sure your wishes or your family wishes are in place the way you want them to be in place. So look for these webinars to drop the second Thursday of every month except December. Just stay on our website, visit our website, and check our newsletters and our emails. Other than that, I want to tell all of you all to give yourself a pat on your back. You've taken the time to listen to Dr. Frankel and hear what she has to say, so give yourself a standing ovation. And personally, I'm committed to helping you make the change you want to make, whatever that happens to be. I'm in your corner, and I'm your biggest cheerleader, and so don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone else on my team, and you can find them on the website. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Frankel. I'm so appreciative.
Thank
Take
you,
it easy,
Diane.
everyone.